Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about eutrophication in the Gulf of Mexico. Eutrophication is a complex problem that affects bodies of water all over the world, as you can see here on this map. In the US, the most prominent instance is in the Gulf of Mexico, where it affects the ecosystem, fisheries, and human health. So the Mississippi River Basin runs through 31 states and empties into the Gulf down in Louisiana. And any precipitation that falls there carries along, when it runs off, carries along chemicals, debris, or other eroded soil that it comes across. And for this problem, we are concerned with nutrient pollutants such as nitrogen and phosphorus. So when nitrogen and phosphorus build up in a water system, they act as a food source for algae and cause the population of algae to grow exponentially, which forms algal blooms like this one here. And then when the algae dies, it depletes the water of oxygen, which leads to the formation of a hypoxic zone, also known as a dead zone because of the lack of oxygen, not allowing for life to thrive in these areas. So eutrophication affects all three pillars of sustainability. For the environmental pillar, we see permanent damages to biodiversity, carrying capacity, and ecosystem functionality. And biodiversity can even be lost to the point that the ecosystem as we know it just no longer exists due to the loss of marine life that can't survive without ample oxygen. Social impacts include human health impacts, such as illness due to water toxicity and shellfish poisoning, which happens when humans consume shellfish that have filtered dinoflagellates, which are a type of algae that is poisonous to humans. Another social impact is the livelihood of those who rely on water resources for income, such as fishermen who are affected by fish kills. So for the economic impact, we see a negative impact on tourism due to water toxicity, a negative impact on the seafood market due to low fishery yields as well as toxic shellfish, which could be a major problem because as you can see in this quote here, the Gulf supplies a lot of the harvested seafood that we consume in the US. So over the past 5 years, the average size of the Gulf Dead Zone has been 6,000 square miles, which for context is about the size of the entire state of Hawaii. And this is 6,000 square miles of unswimmable, unfishable, and unlivable water just within the northern Gulf of Mexico. So this is really a severe problem that needs to be taken seriously.
Okay, so next we have the cause. So the cause of eutrophication is due largely to human activity. Agriculture, livestock operations, and sewage play a huge role in eutrophication. So first, agriculture, synthetic fertilizers, the nitrogen and the phosphorus from the fertilizers that the farmers use flow into the Gulf of Mexico, creating these dead zones, where the aquatic life dies and ecosystems can no longer sustain themselves. Farmers choose to over-apply fertilizers because too little can lower the quality of their crops sometimes, so this excess just runs right off into the Gulf. Livestock operations, so intensive animal farming that focuses only on maximizing its profits. So they don't really care where their water is going, and the animal waste carries high amounts of nutrients as well that contribute to the process of eutrophication. And then our sewage, water treatments, of course, septic tanks that aren't managed properly, they're releasing untreated water into bigger bodies of water. Human waste is also really high in phosphorus nutrients, and this is something that also contributes to eutrophication. Next, we have our vision. What do we want the future to look like? We hope that new technology and institutional change And community-based management will allow us to better regulate nutrient pollution without negatively affecting the economy or the livelihood of farmers. So we're hoping that everyone stays happy. In 15 years, we hope that the Gulf of Mexico is 5,000 square miles. That's about 1,000 square miles less than the current average. Long term, 50 years, we hope that we can cut that current average of 6,000 in half to about 3,000 square miles. And looking further, eventually we hope that the size of the dead zone drops below at least 2,000 square miles, and we hope that it stays that way for the foreseeable future, and we continue to practice sustainability and think about where we're dumping our water, and we can continue to decrease the size of the dead zone.
Hi, thank you for coming. I'd like to thank you all again for taking time out of your day to come and listen to us. Right now we're going to talk about the solution and how we would get there. So there are two things that we are going to need for sure to get to the goals that we're trying to reach. We're going to need political action, lobbying and subsidies and government incentives in order to achieve policy change for reducing the eutrophication in the Gulf of Mexico. By educating people about the eutrophication process and building strong community relationships, together we'll be able to pursue a sustainable social ecological system for farming communities. On education, we're going to focus on farming communities and eutrophication and how to integrate sustainable agriculture practices carefully. With farmers knowing more about the process of eutrophication and how we can change what they're doing in our everyday lives and what policies we can take in those things, we would be able to reach our goals into the future. For political actions, we want to lobby for the requirement by law for more secure waste management systems in animal farms. So one policy will enact for riparian buffers, so no runoff excess for nutrients to get into any like water flows or streams that would eventually be dumped into the Gulf of Mexico. Natural fertilizers such as manure do not contain high levels of nitrogen, so if we can the education on how to properly compost manure into fertilizer would be a great tactic for farmers as well. Green technology, so implement new technology that allows farms to practice agricultural sustainability, remain profitable, and contribute to the economy. This could include vertical farming, which will eliminate traditional plowing methods and reduce loss of soil, and a system to create a quality neutral fertilizers for farmers.
And to conclude our presentation, we believe by educating people we can actively challenge communities to reduce nutrient-rich runoff from entering the Gulf. We ultimately want to do this in 3 ways. The first one will be spreading the word. This will encourage one another to be proactive, implementing change by using products without harmful chemicals in our own daily life. Secondly will be lobbying. This works best in person to encourage change on a national scale. We want to hold presentations in communities to promote ecological awareness. And the third and final one will be implementing change. We want to start from the bottom up in communities to ultimately create sustainable socio-ecological systems. And that will conclude our presentation of eutrophication in the Gulf of Mexico. Thank you.